After a few weeks off, we are back with Takedown, and we're back with a slight adjustment to the format as well. I told Paul the other day, I was like, you know what? Let's just talk about like one big thing. We'll talk about some other stuff in the beginning of this show, and we'll use it kind of as the beginning of the week. We record this on Monday afternoon now for podcast folks. It doesn't go up until Monday evening, but I think it's a nice little jump off to the week because there's, as we've been saying forever, there's so much stuff going on that it can be overwhelming at times. And I had my moments on Saturday night trying to get Dave to start Wrestling Observer Radio, and I was like, I got to be up so early, and this thing is driving me nuts. But we're here, and so we have one topic that we're going to hit on and have a little bit of a longer discussion on, which is the Jon Moxley, the kind of this. I think it's a slow burn, but Paul thinks it's maybe not so much a slow burn. But this Jon Moxley eventual babyface turn. So we're going to talk about that in detail and in depth. First off, though, what are you looking forward to most this week? Like as you think about Monday. Monday is the start of the week for wrestling, because I would say Sunday, but usually Sunday is the end because of how pay-per-views sometimes work. But Monday's the kickoff. Raw happens later tonight. We don't know. By the time people listen to this, they may have already watched Raw. But we got Raw, then NXT, then Dynamite, and then TNA if you watch TNA, and then SmackDown, and then Collision, and then Saturday Night's Main Event. So it just keeps going on and on and on.
And there's 5 New Japan World shows as well.
Oh my God!
So
let's do this in both ways. What was your favorite thing that you watched last week, and then what favorite or kind of like, most newsworthy or whatever, and then we'll start with what are you looking forward to this week?
Okay, so I mean, I'm still trying to make my way through the weekend stuff. And so the last thing I started watching the TNA show this morning. So I still have TNA, ROH, NXT, and a couple of New Japan shows to watch. So I'm so far behind. But from what I actually watched, I would say I really, really liked SmackDown. I liked the opening match and the closing match on SmackDown, especially Gunther and LA Knight, the finals, that tournament. And really, like, looking back on that tournament, like, I think it over delivered and part of that is because I wasn't expecting much.
I still hated the whole idea.
I know you did, and you gave the reasons why, like, just like there didn't seem to be any rhyme or reason why any of these people were in it,
and no one said why they wanted to be in it when they were in it.
Well, not till the end. I mean, at the end, you kind of got that, and I wish we would have had more of that through the tournament.
Yeah,
like Gunther and LA Knight both did good promos to explain why they wanted to win and why they wanted the match with Cena. But I'm just talking about the actual match quality, which, like, obviously, like, the people in WWE are a lot of times better than they get credit for. And sometimes they're not allowed to show how good they are, but they did get those opportunities in these matches. So I would say that. And then as well, I wasn't going to get the ROH pay-per-view, and I still haven't watched it, but on Friday, I got an email, 1 free month of ROH. And so I was like, you just have to claim ROH. I can't remember what the code was, but so I signed up, and then I watched the Thursday show, and there's a really awesome match on that show, Beast Mordos and Commander, which, I mean, you can just close your eyes and picture it, and it was exactly what you'd think, and 10 minutes of just insane spots. It was great. And I just kind of reminded me, because I hadn't seen either of those guys in a while, because I'm not watching ROH and they don't wrestle on AEW. So and I kind of enjoyed that. So those would be the best, but I still got a lot of good stuff to look forward to, like, in addition to all the stuff coming up this weekend.
So I'll say that the AEW fans are probably going to roll their eyes, because if you don't say Moxley and Takeshita was the best thing you watched last week, they're probably.
Well, I didn't see it yet.
No. I'm saying for me.
Okay. Yeah.
But the best thing I watched was that women's Iron Survivor match.
Okay. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Yeah.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
They put on a match that makes you want to, like this match works because it delivers, and then next year you're like, oh man, I'm looking forward to when they do it again. All of the women, I would say, out of the women, maybe Jordan Grace got the least out of it, but everybody else was so on fire and got a ton out of it. And then you also create stars in this match, and so it was just the perfect thing, I thought. And so that's my pick for my
Well,
favorite thing of the
going
weekend.
in, I mean, the lineup for that women's match looked, I mean, better than the men's one.
Men's one was still good, but
yeah,
I don't think it was that good.
Cena made some good picks. Like, I'm sure he picked them.
All right, so what are you looking forward to this week then?
Obviously the Cena thing, but I mean, Dynamite is really loaded on Wednesday. The the Winter's Coming show. We got the Hangman Eddie Kingston. I don't know if it's the booking, the interviews. I've actually convinced myself that Eddie has a chance to win, which is probably stupid on my part, but I just think that if anybody could win a title and lose it like 3 weeks later, it's Joe. And just to give Eddie that like Mick Foley world title win, and maybe he loses it to a returning MJF like right away, but just to say Eddie Kingston won, I'm kind of convincing myself that he might win. So there's that.
Didn't I ask Moxley that on air like 2 years ago?
Yeah,
and he thought it was a good idea like 2 years ago. Here we are again.
Yeah, and then you've got the women's tag team title tournament finals coming on Winter's Coming as well. I think Hangman and Swerve, I assume, although I didn't see Collision, so I know Swerve was on Collision, but I don't know if he confirmed that he's Hangman's partner or not.
Yeah, they made the match.
Yeah, so there's that. So that's a loaded show, and then even the Saturday Collision from Cardiff. Those crowds are always nuts, so that's gonna be fun. And of course the Cena show. So I'm looking forward to all of it. If I had to only pick one that I could watch, obviously it would be the Cena, because that's that's like not a once in a lifetime, but once every couple years kind of special show, that you're not going to get to see. And I'm really curious, not so much the match, even though the match I'm sure is going to be great, but I want to see what they do.
Okay, what do you think they do?
I don't know. Like, I was thinking, like, okay, who's going to be there? I mean, people are talking about Vince and Trump, and I'm not even talking about that, but like, will they get Angle there? I think that's a given.
That would be nice.
Undertaker, I think, would probably have to be there. Do they get Batista? I know he's probably filming a movie somewhere, but could they get him for one night?
Do you think he would want to work with them at this point, based on
I don't know
his politics versus their politics?
I don't know his politics.
His politics are completely opposite of WWE.
Okay, but he's still tight with Triple H, isn't he? Like, I don't know.
So. I don't know. Maybe
I just think
he sees Triple H hanging out with RFK.
To have that,
he's not
just
that close
to be on the front row and shake Cena's hand, something like that. Like, because they're career rivals.
It'd be great. Fantastic.
Orton, would be nice to see. Sean, just some of his career rivals. Whether it's JBL, I think is probably a given. I don't care one way or the other.
What about Rick? Rick was supposed to be on AEW, and he
Flair.
Yeah,
I don't care.
He's always bigged up John Cena as like the man.
Well, yeah, that's true. When he broke the record, he gave him his blessing in all caps.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I mean, so that's why I'm interested in almost more than, and then to see, like, again, we had some ideas we threw around in the Discord about what they could do. And your idea was probably the safest, and probably the most likely, honestly, having Cody and Oba close the show. But when they announced that Cena was opening, I thought, well, how are you going to follow that? And then like have closed the show. Like, you kind of have to close the show with like a send off. So maybe they do something after the first match to set up something for the main event that involves Cena. Like,
what if all of the things you said about who can be at this show?
Yeah.
What if they save that for the end?
Yeah.
What if at the end he comes, Triple H, it brings him back, and then Kurt Angle comes out and Randy Orton comes out and all the folks who you would want to see? I think that would be a fantastic way to go out. Though, does he beat Gunther or does he lose to Gunther?
I mean, that's the question, and I'm sure if it was up to John, he'd want to lose. And
if it was if you're listening to anything that John says in the media, if it is up to John, he doesn't give a shit, because he is just a hired gun,
right,
and he just follows directions.
Right.
So he may be completely emotionless about this.
Well, that doesn't surprise me because, man, those interviews, things they show, like, I know they're trying to sell you on watching that thing, but oh my
He's
god,
a robot.
there is not a thing I want to watch less. Like, if you ask me what are you least looking for, like, there's no way I'm watching that thing because I mean, he just sits there. Yeah,
Oh, you're talking about that YouTube interview that they're
yeah, yeah. It's
promoting?
like, oh yeah, I came back at the Royal Rumble,
Well,
and
so that stuff is
nobody thought I was gonna be back,
I
and
actually like that stuff
really
because he never talks about it, right? Like he
true,
never talks
true.
about any of this stuff. The stuff that I'm talking about is the mainstream media that he was
Okay,
doing.
okay.
So he was on the Bill Simmons podcast,
Yeah, I heard about that.
and the whole thing was about how it's so funny. Like Bill is egging him on, like just trying to get him to say something, and Bill's like, "Well, it looks like you're going out on your own terms with this retirement." And John's like, "No, if it was up to me, I'd wrestle forever, but my body's shutting down."
Okay.
And he's like, "I'm not going out on my own terms. I don't want to stop, but I have to stop because my body's telling me to stop." And so then at the end of the podcast, Bill's like, "Well, I'm happy for you. You're able to go out on your own terms." He's like, "No, I'm not going out on my-" as they're trying to end the podcast. Like he's trying to
Well,
he's
that's cool.
so weird. He's such a robot. But within that, again, it's just about how I've never said anything about who I wanted to face, who I wanted to, whether I wanted to win or lose. And then I talked to Dave about it. He's like, "Oh yeah, he completely kiboshed the Nexus thing."
Mhm.
And I was like, "Oh, well, that story's been out there." You don't hear as much about it. Like, the famous one is like Stone Cold Steve Austin not wanting to work with Jeff Jarrett. We heard that stuff. You don't really hear that about John much. So he does feel a little bit more like the hired gun kind of guy. But yeah, I do wonder what he probably doesn't care because he's moving on and he's doing his stuff, and it doesn't matter. Like if he loses to Gunther, it doesn't affect his movie, whether or not the movie opens
No.
better or worse.
Or Peacemaker or, any of that.
But as I've been talking to John LaRocca about this for feels like forever now, and I'm like, "Okay, what do you think? Should John win or lose?" He's like, "Nope, Gunther should win." And then just last week I said, "Okay, what do you think now?" He's like, "Oh, Gunther should win." And then I guess he was watching SmackDown, and they said something
Yeah.
about Gunther, and which made John think that maybe Cena is winning. I don't even remember
Yeah,
what it
so
was.
what happened was Gunther did a promo before the match, and he said, like, "Oh, we can't see you, but you can see me. So watch me beat LA Knight, and particularly watch the way I beat LA Knight." And then he beat him with the STFU. And then after the match, he says to the camera, "This is your future." Like basically telling him, "This is how I'm going to beat you." And now, I mean, that's a perfect setup for him to put John Cena in that move. And then Cena gets out and then submits Gunther. And then you've got Gunther now 2 big matches this year tapping out, which is a story. Now, everyone else, was thinking the other way. And I'm sure John was thinking the other way as well. Okay, you're going to have him. He retired Goldberg. He retires Cena. Maybe next year he retires AJ. But this is, oh no, he gives up. This is kind of almost like the Moxley story, like submitting in the big moments. So maybe that's the story with Gunther. If he gives up on Saturday, and I
There's
don't think it hurts Gunther at all.
there's a side of folks who are like, Gunther could now be the new legend killer. And I think
Yeah,
I forgot
exactly.
where I think I asked Dave, I was like, and then he could retire AJ.
Yeah,
And then you
Orton.
can, and then you got Orton coming up. You can have that thing. Um somebody somebody reached out to me and was like, Cena should win. And then I kind of mentioned the Gunther thing, and he was like, Gunther's just Gunther. What does he need a gimmick for? He's just great. Like that.
Yeah,
That's kind of the idea too. So, but I am more and more leaning towards Cena needing to win this match. Not needing. Like I think it'd just be a much better thing for the fans who are not only paying those incredible prices for those tickets, but it would nicely cap off this story, which started with him losing the Royal Rumble to Jey Uso. Then
hmm
he won the Elimination Chamber and he turned heel, won the title, lost the title, won the Intercontinental Champion, put Dom over. And this person also said that if he does beat Gunther, Dom could run with the idea that he was the last person to ever beat John Cena as a thing with his current character, which would be I think it's a really good idea too if they do.
And that can lead into, I'm sure eventually he's going to retire Ray.
So then I think having Cena win, it's that feel good moment to end the year, WWE's year in a sense. And then at the end you get this retirement stuff, and that's just real good. Like when do you ever feel like so much goodness coming out of a WWE show? It's rare because so much of it is about
Yeah.
heat. Same with AEW, by the way. Though there have been really good moments like that Sting one that I always bring up for when Sting retired. I was like, that's one of the best moments I've ever watched in professional wrestling in my lifetime. You could do the same thing with John Cena and make it this great moment. And if Gunther wins for a business reason, if now it places Gunther in the echelon, he's in one of the main events at WrestleMania. I also understand that, but I'm gonna forget about this if Gunther wins much more sooner than I will if Cena wins.
Cena wins, and then they can use that to lead into Gunther's next feud. Whoever that's going to be, it can be part of the reason he might be motivated by losing to Cena. And then the other guy could be, he could eventually even set up a Gunther face turn, to where like a heel is riding him because he lost to Cena.
So have you been spoiled with the other matches that are going to be on that show? We have two that I know.
Well, I saw it's Charlotte, or I mean Bailey and Sol Ruca. They announced that on SmackDown, and then Cody and Oba, and those are the only two I know.
Those are the only two that I know of. Though there was a story that Leon Slater may have canceled some bookings this weekend, which made people think that he may be at Saturday night's main event.
Well, it'd be cool if they did like maybe like an X Division title match on that show. Like that could be John Cena saying, hey, like that we want to showcase the young stars, and maybe you do
put him and Javon back together.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or have them do a tag team match, against the tag team, champions or something, or like against the Usos or something. Like awesome. Yeah, man, I just said that. Now, as soon as I said it, I was like, oh man, that'd be great. Or Motor City Machine Guns or something like that. Like somebody they could just have a great match with.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to that this weekend as well.
Extra half hour too, right?
Why do they even have a time limit on that show? It's just
I don't know.
It's like a.
But they went like last time they went off the air like right at 2 hours, and
I know.
This one they're starting a half hour early. So, I think it's probably because of the Cena stuff. Whatever they're planning for Cena is probably that extra time.
Yeah,
I guess.
All right. So, what has been your favorite Continental Classic match so far?
So far, and again, I haven't seen Mox Takeshita, and I'm told that'll probably be my favorite when I see it. But so far, it was Kevin Knight and Kyle Fletcher.
That's probably my favorite too. Though Mox and Takeshita, like the last several minutes of that match, were really great. They were like pay-per-view quality style wrestling. There's just something about Kevin Knight, and there's age-old discussion of like, why don't you just put the rocket pack on the back of one of these young guys and immediately elevate them into the main event? And they're not doing that with Kevin Knight. He probably isn't a good enough promo yet, though, because he rarely does them. But man, if I look at that company and I think, okay, who are the coolest guys in that company? He's probably at the top of the list. Like, just that's a cool dude. He's got the total package from a wrestling perspective. Just looks cool. He's next to the goofball speedball. So that maybe props him up a little bit more, but I would love to see that guy at the, whatever the next step for him is. I hope coming out of the Continental Classic, he gets a little bit of a bump out of that.
Well, if history's any indication, he won't. But because I just think back to previous ones and the people that were kind of focused on during the tournament in that kind of role, and you could see the ideas coming out of it. Like Daniel Garcia was one, and the first year maybe Mark Briscoe. And I guess Mark Briscoe, maybe has been elevated a little bit, but I'll give Jeremy credit, our friend Jeremy Feinstone, and I had the same idea, but I think we both kind of said it at the same time. If you could combine Kevin Knight's athletic ability with Trick Williams' charisma and promos, you've got like that's almost like The Rock, in terms of like I mean, there's nothing like The Rock, but like in terms of like the potential to be like the biggest guy in the world. Like if Trick could wrestle like Kevin Knight, or if Kevin Knight looked and acted like Trick, you'd just be printing money.
Yeah.
And so and the key for both companies is to try to get that, what's missing out of those two, on screen. And I think like it's a good problem to have, because Kevin Knight, I think people don't remember, he's very young.
How old
And
is he?
like I think like 25, maybe 25, 26 at the most. um I'm gonna Google it, but I because it's not that
He's
long that I've
28.
been.
He's 28.
28. Okay, so he's
Yeah.
a year younger than Trick. But in AEW, that's pretty young. Although Darby, I think, is surprisingly only like 28. Although, if you're talking about how many years they have left,
Well, he's actually been on TV for a long time now.
he has, yeah. But yeah, so I mean, I hope they do something with Kevin, but I suspect, I mean, he'll probably go back to his tag team with Speedball when the tournament's over, and and I'm sure they'll probably win the tag team titles at some point. They're a great team. And it kind of works, that whole, the contrast between the two personalities. But yeah, he had that match. He had the match with Darby, which was pretty great because it was a good upset. Like, I don't think anybody saw that upset coming. So possibly the two most memorable matches in the tournament so far for me, from what I've seen.
I did love the Moxley and Claudio finish. I love the
Yeah,
finish of that match.
yeah, that was
And I
cool.
love the end scene where the Death Riders are emotionally kind of mixed, and like they want to be happy for Claudio, but they're kind of sad for Moxley at the same time. Their leader lost the match to the guy who's not the leader. And so I liked that, like, they kind of went off air with no commentary and just the acting of all the Death Riders, which I thought was pretty effective. I like that, and which kind of
Compelling. Yeah.
it kind of leads into what our main topic is on this show,
Mhm.
which is you have started a conversation that Moxley turning babyface, which is this eventual thing that we think is going to happen, that it's not believable because of how sadistic he was, and unless something happens to shape the turn, you're kind of like at odds with what they're doing right now.
Yeah, and it's like, again, I'm, and in some ways maybe people can say, and rightfully so, that I'm complaining about something that hasn't even happened yet. But it's just kind of where it feels like it's going. And like, people are already starting to cheer Moxley. And then, and I brought this up. I can't remember if I mentioned in the Discord, but I definitely brought it up on the F4W message board and had a good conversation, which doesn't always happen on there. But about, like, the fact that people are cheering Moxley, even though, like, over the last year and a half, he's been like the most despicable heel. He ended Bryan Danielson's career. He tried to suffocate him with a plastic bag. Then he threw Darby down a flight of stairs, and he tried to kill Darby with a plastic bag. And he held the title hostage for 9 months. And he's talking in riddles, and the whole goal of all the top babyfaces in the company was, we got to get that title off Moxley. We got to get that title off Moxley. Finally, they do it, and it's a great moment. Hangman wins the belt, and then next week it's like, well, the belt doesn't matter. I don't care. And then we just went right back to the Death Riders running wild over everything, and I'm like, come on. And then and so we get all that, but you figure, okay, I thought it's been obvious for probably about 2 months now. Well, I remember there was one interview in particular where Moxley was just, and this was after he lost the world title, and he's just rambling. And the guys are behind him, where they used to be like, yeah, like, and they're just kind of looking at him and almost like rolling their eyes, like that they're not buying this anymore. And yet, Moxie's still going. And then, but he's still doing stuff like he attacked Cole Cabana. He choked him out, hung him from the top rope. He did Matt Menard just a couple weeks ago, pulled him out of commentary and beat the crap out of him and took over for him. And so, like, all this stuff that's going on, and then the fans are still cheering him, and it's almost like they're ignoring the storylines. And then when you talk to the fans, and again, I brought it up and people responded like, well, fans in 2025 don't just go and play their role and cheer for the baby faces and boo the heels. They cheer who they like, and they like Moxley because he's the man, he's the ace. And I'm like, I just wish they would tell a story to get me to do that.
But that's historical though. Like Ric Flair
Yeah,
was
yeah.
constantly cheered as a heel.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess the one thing that I was thinking about as you were bringing this up is
Mm-hmm.
whether or not there's a reason or there's like this dramatic reason, whether it's Claudio and Pac boot him from the Death Riders. I don't know if I want to necessarily see that. It could happen, and I'd be fine with it because it makes sense. Or if there's a split, which goes back to what I said about the Dynamite show, where
Mm-hmm.
Moxley, Wheeler Yuta goes to Moxie, Daniel Garcia goes to Claudio, Marina's in the middle, Pac is the wild card, like the splitting of the Death Riders. But historically, when people have turned babyface kind of organically, and this isn't even really organically because that the loss to Hangman kind of sets it up in the fans' eyes as this could possibly be happening. Fans are pretty smart,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes it's just time, and the fans kind of do the turn for you because they just like the person. And you were mentioning how earlier when we were talking about this, like historical ones in the past, like why did this person turn? Well, Randy Savage in '87 after Ricky Steamboat, and then they create the Mega Powers. But in this case, the fans loving Jon Moxley has everything to do with what he's done for this company from
Mm-hmm.
the beginning. And so it's almost more reasonable for me as a fan to go, yeah, of course he's a baby face. Like it was maybe a little bit more forced for him to kill Bryan Danielson and turn heel in the way that he did, where I was like, okay, maybe I don't really believe that, but they had to do something drastic just to get fans to boo him because they want to cheer him. He is like the hero of the company. That is how he is portrayed. That is how Tony Khan has mentioned him in the past. So I think he's kind of a baby face in heel's clothing. And naturally, he just kind of has to take off those heel clothes and he'll be back to being a babyface. But storyline wise, what you're saying, I do think there is a slice of fans who will be dissatisfied if there's not like a reason for him to come back and turn babyface.
Well, yeah, and again, like, and the part of the reason I feel like this is because we just saw. Okay, look at the Young Bucks. So they were kind of similar to Moxley in that, like, everybody actually loves the Young Bucks, right? Like, they're the reason AEW exists. They've been the top tag team in the world for, God, 15 years or something. And then when they turned heel, they had to be so over the top dramatic with it in order to actually get fans to boo them. They're attacking Tony Khan, they're hijacking the show. They're doing things, just completely outlandish in order to get fans to boo them. And then, fast forward to after they lost their EVP status, then you have them getting their comeuppance where they start making fun of them in commentary, and they're showing like no pyro, and they got the goofy try-ons and stuff, and they have no money, and we both hated it. And
Oh my gosh, I hated it. It's I
right,
thought it was one of the worst things that they've ever done.
right. And yet when you talk to fans, they're like, oh, this is great because now they're getting their comeuppance. It's gonna be so awesome when they turn babyface. And it's like, wait. How do you go from that to being a babyface? So then, like, right after all that happens, then you have Jungle Boy returns. And for some reason, he hates the Young Bucks, even though the last time they were on screen together, they are best friends. We have no idea why, except there's something happened on BTE that explains why Jungle Boy was mad at them. So he turns on them, turns babyface, and then a month later, the Young Bucks turn babyface by saving him. And I'm like, what is going on? And then I'm like, are we going to get something like this with Moxley? And the one thing that gives me hope is Jon Moxley is a smart guy.
Yep.
And I don't think Jon Moxley is going to allow that to happen to his character. So I think he will give himself a reason You know, he sees that fans are cheering him. He understands. He will come up with a storyline way to make sense of the fact that he's now going to be a hero, or maybe not a hero, but maybe an anti-hero that the fans are cheering for, like a
He's kind of
Stone
always
Cold.
been like that, though, right?
He has, and even when he was a babyface, like he was never a nice guy.
No, he's
You
not
know,
doing the "I love this, I love you" fans
Mm.
for he's
Not
never been
even
that
so
guy.
much. He will say, "I love the company," and even as a heel, he was saying that.
He says, "I love pro wrestling. It's the greatest sport ever."
I think what he's even said, he loves AEW because it gives him and others the opportunity to do what they weren't able to do where he used to work. You know,
Yep.
that sort of thing he will say and has said. So that does give me hope. I worry about the fans, and part of the reason is, and you've said this before, and I've agreed, the fans their hardcore fan base will accept anything.
Just about
And
anything, yeah.
yeah, so they don't, yeah, you're right. Yeah, just about anything. And there are stuff that they've rejected. And you know,
Caster and Bowens.
well, the thing Caster they love now too. Bowens, they absolutely rejected Bowens because he was brought back. He was not meant to be what he is now. You could see like Tony had big plans for him, and he gave up on them real quick because that whole 5 to a player thing with the theme song and the Tron and everything like that there was clearly he wanted him to be a big time babyface, and fans just didn't agree.
So there's one other thing that I think we should bring up that makes this different from some of the heel turns of the past or the babyface turns of the past is that these dudes are just on TV so much week
Yes.
after week after week after week. So we've seen so many versions of Jon Moxley in AEW, and now this is another version. Now, we have watched, I haven't watched every single Dynamite because I did take the week off a couple weeks ago for Thanksgiving, but I would say of every Dynamite that has happened, I've maybe missed 5, at most. There are some fans who didn't watch the first year of Dynamite or the first 2 years of Dynamite or the first 3 years of Dynamite, or they didn't start watching until HBO Max came along with the show. So to them, maybe he hasn't been on TV forever like to us. So that is a different viewpoint, because I remember when I would be reading the Observer, the old Observers, Dave would say stuff like, well, WWF just thinks that they have a brand new audience every 3 years. And that's kind of how they book is, fans age out and new fans come in. And so if Hulk Hogan had body slammed Andre the Giant, in 1980 or whenever it was, then you can just say that he's never done it or Andre's never been slammed, because by 1987 you have a whole new audience. And that was kind of the idea.
I don't
So
think I don't think they were wrong. I think most fans watching had no idea. I didn't know.
you know how I knew is because of PW Pro Wrestling
Oh,
Illustrated. They
yeah.
did an issue where they're like, "Did you know Hulk
Yeah.
Hogan was a bad guy before?"
Yeah.
And so that's how I
And
knew when I was a little kid.
60,000 fans saw it 5 years ago, but it's a big secret.
And so
Yeah.
that is something that we have to think about, which is, to
Yeah.
us, we've
Yeah.
seen every iteration of Jon Moxley since 2019 and even before, because when he was with
Yeah.
WWE.
I watched those early Dynamites, and I'd forgotten. Like, he was a despicable heel when Dynamite started. I
Didn't
forgot
he?
about that.
And you remember one of the big backlashes early on in Dynamite was putting Omega through the glass table
Yeah.
with that
Oh,
suplex.
I boycotted the first Full Gear because of that. I wasn't
Yeah.
gonna watch it, and I didn't watch it. I never have. I still haven't to this day.
And
Um,
like that was so drastic back then. And
mhm.
so in order to get fans to feel the same way today, you got to put a plastic bag over somebody's head.
And then what was it?
And
3 months later, he was a babyface feuding with Chris Jericho.
yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it's not much different, like, I guess, when you look at it that way. Although I will say I think the stuff he did with Darby and Danielson was worse, but it's because it had to be, like, just, like, for the reasons you said.
And the one thing you mentioned, all the stuff that he did to Darby. Darby also set this man on fire.
Yeah, and he murdered his best friend who somehow came back to life. He dragged him. Apparently, the story was because they
The
did
Gabe
say that
kid.
right across the Jersey Turnpike. from Philly, like at 50 miles an hour in a truck.
And you know, I think historically we've seen so many unbelievable things in wrestling. When you're a little kid, you're just kind of into it, and then when you're an adult, you're like, okay, this is stupid. But the thing about those things are that, like, some of it is just because Tony promised us AEW is going to be different, right? And we're like, in 2019, you said this was going to be realistic in sports, and he's like, okay, yeah, but that was like 6 years ago, and now I know that maybe this works a little bit better with my audience. So be it.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much. I mean, other than the in ring, the actual storytelling, like it's pro wrestling. Like there's not a lot different in the two companies. Like obviously, the storylines are different, but the general formula is the same. I would say that the presentation of the actual wrestling is vastly different. I mean, I'm struck by that every time I watch Raw. And I love Raw, but you watch Raw and it's like 25 minutes before anything happens. And with Dynamite, you've already had 2 matches by that point.
Can I tell
So,
you though, for my wrestling taste and my fandom and how I want wrestling to look and feel, a great Raw is like the perfect pro wrestling television for me.
oh yeah, yeah, no, and I wasn't criticizing it. I'm just pointing out how different it is. And
And I know,
sometimes Dynamite tries to do that, and it doesn't work because that's not what they're good at.
but I know the match quality, and
Mhm.
WWE doesn't use TV matches in the same way that AEW does.
No.
Like, you'll get this great match or really good match on WWE TV, and then it'll end with some fluky thing at the end, double disqualification, like super predictable. And you're like, why do they have to do that? But it's because they're trying to get you to watch next week. Like that's the same the trope that they use. And I watch that and I go, okay, whatever. But the presentation and the
Yeah.
interviews and the way that they produce that show and how they go into commercial and how they come out of commercial and how they set up things, I like that way more than Dynamite. But you don't have the match quality, and that's
Right.
what Dynamite has that they need to hang on to,
Mhm.
because WWE has everything else, but their presentation of pro wrestling as the most important thing. If you want to watch matches, this is the most important show for you to watch. And they got to keep doing it that way.
Yeah, and the C2 right now that's going on just accentuates that because I mean, the very format of the tournament doesn't even allow for the bad finishes. Like
Yes.
you have to get a finish, and the closest thing to a bad finish is actually an awesome finish, which was, like Jon Moxley just getting flash KO'd. Like that's, I mean, you wouldn't normally see that. And sometimes there's a time when people would have looked at that and said, "Oh, that sucked." Like we didn't even get any kickouts. Like, no, it's like that's great, so and or the instant tap that Moxley will do sometimes.
The
So
first time I saw a finish like that I can remember, it was on a John the Rocker premiere wrestling show featuring Jeff Cobb.
oh,
I forget the guy who Jeff was facing, but this guy worked in NXT for a short period of time, I think. But anyways, John wanted to create this idea that anything can happen and a lot of what Premiere was as well was like these matches weren't all going 10 or 15 minutes. Some of them would go 6, and some of
mhm.
them would go 12, and some of them would go 8. And there was no repetitiveness to the style because he really wanted it to feel a little bit more realistic. And I remember I don't even remember the finish, but like the match is just happening and it's short and you're thinking like, okay, Jeff's gonna win because Jeff's their best guy, and all of a sudden, boom, Jeff just gets pinned, and I was like, what the hell happened? And then so I texted John in the back, like, did he get hurt? And John like replies, he's like, LOL. Like, no, I just wanted to educate the fans that anything could happen on these shows, so that's why you got to pay attention, and that's why I want you to come.
Well, you remember they did that with surprisingly enough, WWE was doing it a couple of years ago with Lei Ying Lee, who was Xia Li at the time. and she was getting those flash knockouts where she would just hit that spinning back fist and the person would be out. And that, like, I thought that was cool. And they've done it before too. Like, I think they might have done it with Ryback or possibly maybe Keith Lee. Like, there was somebody they were trying to get that over with, and they always gave up on it. Brock, I know did it for a little while, where he was finishing matches by stoppage, where the referee was just, no, that's it, you're done. They just kind of get away from it because they like their tried and true formula of 2 minutes of action, commercial, come back, interference, pinfall.
The fans are very educated for a certain thing, and what WWE fans are great at is buying into the layout. They just buy into the layout of the end of the match, and so when you change that, the fans may not pop in the same way, or they may not, they may not kind of rise to the level before the finish like they normally.
I got a buddy that knows their formula so well, he can like fast forward to what's going to happen, and he couldn't do that if you had finishes like that, so he'd probably get frustrated. But he loves his WWE. Just likes watching a 3-hour show in an hour and a half or less.
I mean, that's kind of how I watch it too.
Yeah, I know.
If I'm being honest.
Yeah.
All right. So we got in a nice tight 40, which is kind of what I want for this show, because we record it during the day, kind of on our lunch break or whatever. I think a tight 40. So that's where I'm trying to fit it in. We may go longer or shorter at some point, but that is my new vision for what the show is, kind of the kickstart for the week for Fight Game Media and for wrestling. So, all right, man. So we'll you and Jeff will be back on Wednesday night after winter is coming.
I think we're gonna talk. We're gonna talk about Eddie, I think.
Yeah, I saw that. If you were in the Discord in the Dynamite show, we had a discussion about Eddie Kingston and the kind of the way that the heels get on him has been similar over the years, and they did it again with Samoa Joe. So
so that'll be. We always do a
discussion piece.
We always do 10-15 minutes before we do the show recap, and that's what we're going to be talking about this week. And hey, maybe we're going to be talking about the new world champion.
It would be cool, but I don't think they have if the argument for the reason why Samoa Joe won the title is because there were no heels left for Hangman set up, then you're putting it back on a babyface who has no heels set up, unless it just goes back to Samoa Joe like very quickly,
or MJF who's coming back next week.
He's like just sees Eddie Kingston like easy work. He's like, easy work. I'm cashing in.
He shows up right as soon as the match is over to Tony Khan. Hey, I'm next week. Yeah. That'd be cool. Funny, actually, and then he loses.
Yeah, that would be funny. I miss that guy, but it's a good thing to miss him, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And we may end up with the same problem as we have with Mox.
Yeah,
he might come back and people start cheering him.
Yeah. All right, that's it from here. So for Paul, I'm Double G. We'll see you when we see you. Peace out.